Hello, everyone. Today we will talk about clan collection. Hello, everyone. Today, the topic, of course, as the title says, will be the clan collection decks that are coming out in volumes 3 and 4. I just showed 0 and 5, but don't pay too much attention to that. So over the last few weeks, I want to say, since like the end of September, we basically got the reveals for the art and basically archetypes, and as well as like descriptions of skills for every single clan in clan collection volumes 3 and 4. Now, for volumes 1 and 2, I kind of forgot to, or I didn't have time to make videos about all of the different decks, and so today I want to fix that and make one big video talking about all the different decks and what is actually coming for all of these clans. We're going to basically quickly break down all 24 clans of support and talk about the kind of things they got and anything that stands out, as well as the things that I personally want to build, because to be honest, there's only so many things that I actually do want to build. Also, I want to take this moment to thank this month's channel members as well. So huge thank you to Crowned Clown, Very Flores, Platinum Wolf 2009, Christian, Kairos Darkblade, Carrie Barger, Arcana Master, Tristan H, Martinich 67, Cardinal Joker, Michael Lockett, Stogan, Zach S, Preeper 66, Jan Fish, Impact Monster, KSGG, Chris Branham, and Mr. Turkey. Thank you so much, guys, for your support. If you don't already know, we do special remote fight tournaments for all 3 TCG formats for the YouTube channel members. So if you want to become one yourself and join in on the fun, they are free for all channel members and all Twitch subscribers. So feel free to join if you'd like to participate. Anyway, let's begin. So they unexpectedly dropped the first pair of which of these to us on like the end of September, which was a combination of Spikes and Gold Paladin. For Spikes, we are getting Dudley Reverse, which basically confirmed that we are going to be getting reverse units for clans. Again, we already knew this, but we are getting reverse units for clans that never had a reverse unit. And the cards here are pretty cool. I think the main things of note is that the grade 2 apparently can attack from center back row circle and also call a copy of itself by putting itself to soul, which sounds like a lot of attacks, and I feel like maybe in premium you could make something pretty insane out of that, potentially. Whereas Dudley Emperor Reverse himself lets you keep calling allies, as Dudley Emperor always has, but also every time a rearguard is turned to deck, you can lock something of your own field to gain a power-up. Now, they didn't exactly say what this power-up is, but you can probably expect some form of damage or whatever that they decide to do. Then, of course, for golds, it's going to be Azel supports. So Grand Azel Scissors was probably the most obscure one, supports all Azels until now, and by gathering the power of Azel, the line breaks the lock and weaves a new future. Like, yeah, okay, great, fantastic. You've done a great job. That's a fantastic skill description. I've never read a better one. What concerns me a little bit more, though, is the grade 2, which says it gets more power for each Azel in your soul, and in addition, if you have a grade 3 in your soul, it can battle many units. Does that mean that Leonard is coming to golds? Of course, this might just mean that it has a Vermilion style effect and not necessarily a Leonard style effect. Plus, I guess it probably doesn't have the payoff of Leonard of calling things to rearguard circles and putting them into your soul to get more attacks. But still, it's a pretty interesting piece of support. Then the next day was quite surprising, because for Kagero, they showed off that it's not going to be the same formula as before, where it's like one grade 3 that they do like as the main focus and then like supporting units. But instead, we just get 3 grade 3s. So we get Lockkeeper, Blazing Flare, and Dauntless Reverse, all 3 of them, which is pretty cool. So Lockkeeper does the same thing as before, binds your opponent's rears. Blazing Flare lets you Soul Blast to retire any number of cards, and if you Soul Blast 5, then not only rear guards, so chances are it's going to deal a damage to the Vanguard or something. And Dauntless Reverse says that when you drive check a card, you can put it down as a locked card to get an additional drive, and then you can at the end of the battle sacrifice the placed locked cards to ... So that'll be quite interesting, that you can actually probably like put your locked circles to the drop zone or something in order to probably like restand or something, I'm guessing. Then for grade nature, it's going to be Polaris, Locks, and of course Coiling Duckbill. So I think this will reveal happen on the same day as the premium ban list dropped. And of course, Solemn made a very good video out of that. So Duckbill lets you bounce it to hand when it's discarded from your deck, and when it's retired by an ability, you also draw 1. So basically just a bunch of draw power, which sounds pretty decent. Locks, I think the majority of people forgot that Locks even exists, to be honest, but it's pretty cool that it came back. Supports all kinds of grade 3 units, and if you put a bunch of grade 3s into your deck, you can activate a powerful skill. So it sounds like he's gonna roleplay Bastion. And then we have Mr. Polaris, who shares power amongst your allies and gives 50,000 power to a unit and stands it. What happens when they give 70,000 power or more? Sharpen Polaris's blades to find out. So I feel like it might be like self-retire or like discard from hand or something in order to do that kind of stuff, or like self-mill maybe. So it'll be pretty interesting, because 70k power is definitely no joke no matter what clan you put that into. Up next we have Murakumo and Granblue. So Murakumo also did the same support as like Kagero, where they have like 3 different grade 3s. So we have Weasels that support that old Murakumo Weasel deck from like 28 2019, I want to say 2019, I think. And then Tamamo, this one's quite nostalgic to me because like when I was young and I was trying to get my little brother to build him a like a playable deck, I built it around Tamamo, I think, back then in Murakumo. This turns into another unit when placed, and when attacking with stealth fiends of different names, it powers up. Is stealth fiend the thing that came out in the last clan collection? I can't really remember, but it might have been stealth something else, I'm not too sure. And then Hyakivogue Reverse, of course, is the main focus here and was the obvious choice because that is the existing reverse unit for Murakumo. By locking your allies, you can call a great amount of Hyakivogues, and in combination with the old Hyakivogue, overwhelm your opponent with the power of clones. So you can literally become XX Naruto 69XX and win the game. And then for Granblue, they basically brought back the first ever Granblue meta deck, which was the combination of Cocytus Reverse as well as Negrobolt, the Legion back then. And what you would do back then was go into Cocytus Reverse and call down the Limit Break Remover, mill your whole deck basically, and then you would go into the Legion and keep legioning back crits while getting 4 attacks and just like critting your opponent every single attack by re-legioning every single turn. Which I know a lot of existing Granblue players really liked that deck back then too, so that's kind of nostalgic. Cocytus Reverse himself says at the end of the battle, your old Cocytus attacked. By locking your rear guards, you ride it from the drop zone, and when it's attacked himself, you can actually power him up by sacrificing your rear guards, which is cool. Defensive mechanics I'm always very happy about, so that's great. And then the Legion, Negrobolt himself says the more cards you put in your drop zone in one turn, then all your rear guards will gain an increase in power and shield until your next turn. Again, defensive mechanics, beautiful. Thank you, Bushiroad. And when the Grade 2 Ghoul Dragon attacks, it can retire your opponent. Yes, your opponent. It doesn't say your opponent's rear guard, it says your opponent. So you probably literally just like make your opponent, you know, shake your hand, GG's round 2. And it also has a skill to support Negrobolt, which is pretty expected because that's kind of what they do with these like Legion retrains. And then we had the Stargate duo, or Brandgate duo as you wish to call it, with DP and Link Joker. Now for DP, I'm actually like, I have said this many times on my streams and in videos and stuff like that. Now that I have Tachikaze, I do not care what they do. Like literally you can do Gallop support, Dyliner support, Enigma support, another Zeal. I really don't care because I've gotten my boy. Please do whatever you want with DP, as long as they're strong cards. As long as they're strong cards that support the clan and I can viably play them, I'll be happy. And so they decided to go with Batman and his Batmobiles, which is pretty fine. So we have a grade 1, which is called Eternity Chaser, which I think is pretty cool. When you ride over him, add the necessary grade 3 to your hand. And he also has a skill to nullify an opponent's rear guard attack. So I guess it's kind of like that Brandgate grade 2, I guess, that guards your opponent's grade 2 or less rear guards, I guess. But that's already kind of interesting because that sounds like it's going to be competing for the die prop spot, because die prop is a really good like ride on grade 1, and this one searches the specific grade 3 you want, which is pretty good. Maybe we can play less grade 3s in some like non-Dyliner builds, so I don't know, that'd be nice. Endless Float is the grade 2, that sounds like an ice cream flavor. When ridden on, increase your Vanguard's power while calling itself, so that's already a pretty cool skill, I like that. But again, we have the Kaizard in this set, which is kind of like complicated, again, competing for the same spot. And when he attacks during the turn a grade 3 was placed, it further increases its power, which is sounds okay, sounds fine. Like most grade 2s in DP do that, so I guess it's fine. And Original Saber 0 says all your allies and your opponents all will be 0. Naturally, the skill to reduce the opponent's power is present, but beyond that, they always like try to hype this up like that. I don't know why they do that. With its skill that activates when ridden on, combine the powers of grade 3s up until now with the old hero. So it sounds like it's going to be very like splashable and easy to use with different like other grade 3s type of deck. So it'd be cool if this supports like Gallop, if it supports, I mean, what else could it support? Zeal, Dyliner, Brad Black, Tachikaze, like there's plenty of other grade 3s that you can combine it with, so I'm looking forward to it. Sounds pretty cool. And then for Link Joker, they basically printed more Starvaders because we still don't have enough Starvaders in V Premium. So we got the 10k attacker, 12k attacker, as well as Nebula Lord, so literally the trial deck plus the original BT12 over here. So Neon says if your opponent has a locked card, you can call it from the drop at the beginning of the battle phase, which is pretty cool. Link Joker always likes to plus, and so if we get this kind of plussing, that sounds pretty nice to me, as long as the cost isn't too great. And then Rado on the grade 2 says at the start of your battle phase, you can call it from drop zone to a column with a Starvader in it, and it can also guard restrict apparently, which is pretty good. Link Joker isn't really known for having guard restrict because you like field restrict usually, so that's kind of cool. And then Nebula Lord, of course, is quite a lot of people's favorite like Link Joker grade 3, so that's quite cool to see him back actually. Lock the rear guard at the expense of allies. Lock even without the opponent's rear guard. A Starvader that powers up Starvaders by the number of opponents' locked cards. So it sounds like he might just be like an alternate ride to Chaos, like when your opponent doesn't call down a board or something, which is pretty cool. I think they do need that kind of card because Infinite Zero in V just feels like kind of fell short. It's more so a good attacker on rear than it is like a good Vanguard Vanguard to go into because of like the damage restriction that he has. So I hope that Nebulord is actually like a more playable grade 3 than the Infinite Zero was, honestly, from the last clan collection, because I think that Starvaders could use that kind of support. And I mean, hey, it's more Starvader hit targets for the Craven Claw, which is pretty good. We then got Bermuda and of course Neo Nectar, which we already knew was going to be Cecilia Reverse. So for Bermuda is pretty interesting because we got Refiorade again, but Refiorade Rock. And of course, Rock and Lock are spelled the same in Japanese, so that's something. But they chose to write like Rock in English in her name, so you can't like misunderstand it as Lock. So it looks like Refiorade has changed and now she shines on the main stage and she's going to play the leading role. So I guess she's not going to rest herself to activate trigger effects anymore, but probably have like an on-attack effect or something like that. The supporting cards for Bermuda are very, very vague, so I'm going to leave these out and wait until they actually like give us an effect, because they basically say, when you have something you're looking for, she might come in handy. So what is it, generic searcher? Like, what exactly are we doing with this, right? For Neo Nectar though, of course, Cecilia Reverse is a reverse unit that works on both Vanguard and Rearguard. That is very important because I feel like we've been lacking like good grade 3 Rearguards in Neo Nectar lately. Repeated attacks are possible by calling Cecilia, sounds like the original one, from the deck. Also, by locking your front row Rearguards. Not sure how I feel about that one. Keep in mind though, because this is Neo Nectar, if you lock your own plant tokens, they disappear, so that's fine, right? But then they also got Master Wisteria, which is the old break red for Neo Nectar, who lets you call a plant token and add a card with the same name as a Rearguard to hand. So maybe you can call down a PG and clone it to your hand. That's pretty good. And he also powers up units with the same name, which is kind of expected. Like, that's like the classic Neo Nectar that people were hoping to get back. And then August is a Musketeer that we get as a grade 2. That is a good attacker and guardian, apparently. And you can draw by returning a Musketeer from drop to the deck, which is a very Musketeer style ability. Then this one I quite liked. We got Aqua Force and Gear Chronicle after that. Aqua Force, we got Valeria back, which in my opinion is like one of the coolest like tier knights, I guess, that we ever had for Aqua Force, and it feels weird that they never like cashed on that hype. But she powers up on 4th attack or more, and if her attack hits, you get a skill that forces your opponent to guard, which is nice, I guess. Cobalt Wave, which is like a random double rare from way back when, is also retrained as a grade 3. So powers up every time you Rearguard attacks, just like he used to, and even after a strong attack, you can switch the front and back rows to make more attacks, which is sounds like Cobalt Wave. Yep, watch him be 10k base again. And then of course Maelstrom Reverse, being the main focus for Aqua Force, says that you power up by locking allies every time your opponent guards, which is pretty cool. On guard, locking your own stuff to do something is pretty nice. If the opponent guards your Vanguard's attack while you have a locked card, he says, resistance is futile. Make a choice. Sacrifice yourself or your friends. So I guess he will force you to either discard or retire your Rearguards, or maybe he'll force you to take a damage, which is also pretty spicy. So Maelstrom might be pretty good again. I mean, Maelstrom's always been pretty good in V. People just kind of sleep on it, but it's actually a pretty strong deck because it has so many good support cards. So this is looking even better. But I personally really like the Gear Chronicle stuff because it's all Steam Maidens, right? So we have Ururu, the grade 0, right? And in G we had Elul, like Eruru, the grade 3 that like supported Chronojet back then. And so she says, at the end of your battle, your Steam Maiden attacked, swap that unit with a unit from the bind zone with grade +1. Connect the attack of the grade 0 Uluru with the guard of Iluru and Aluru, which is a grade 1 and 2. So the grade 1 Iluru says, you bind a grade 2 from hand to draw a card. So you set up a grade 2 in your bind zone, and after she attacks, you swap with a grade 2 from bind zone. So she probably goes to bind to call out the grade 2. The grade 2 says, you bind a card from drop, and for each grade of that card, you power up. And she has a skill to swap with a grade 3 from your bind zone after she attacks. So I'm guessing that goes into the editor. So I'm assuming she, like, the grade 3 on Vanguard Circle lets you go like grade 0, 1, 2, and then 3. Sadly, there's no 4, but that's pretty good if you can do that like multiple times and like keep attacking. It literally sounds like time leap combos, but just without Chronojet. Like, it's going to be focused on the Steam Maidens, which is pretty nice. Like, giving us another potential deck in Gear Chronicle is always a good thing in my opinion, because right now we just have Chronojet and like Chrono Fang, or like I guess Lost Legend. That's about it. But I mean, everyone's basically playing Chronojet, so it's nice that they're introducing something new here as well, and it sounds pretty funny. Then we had OTT as well as Dark Irregulars. So OTT support this time is going to be Witch focus, which is pretty cool. So we have Mumu, Tete, and Yo-Yo. So Mumu says when she's rode upon by a witch unit, she's the grade 1, you can draw a card. She can rest herself to add witch cards from the top of your deck to your hand, which is pretty cool because we have quite a lot of witches in the V series already, of course Coco focused. Tete says when you discard her, if you Vanguard's a witch, you can call her back out, so it's literally like a Ribble, and you can utilize this well by discarding it for Sentinel. It can also handle Sentinel restricting attacks, so it sounds like it's going to be like an Eos Anesis for OTT, which is pretty good. Those kind of cards always kind of good. And then Yo-Yo, which looks to be the grade 3, says when rode upon, you can either call her as a rearguard or get an extra protect marker, and then if your Vanguard is a witch, she can change into another witch and make additional attacks. Does that mean like after she battles, she like swaps with another witch from like your drop or your hand or your soul or something? something, because that sounds pretty good. Sounds pretty good, which is like were like a interesting budget deck for the longest time. So I think for anyone that's been holding on to them for a long time, because I know there are some people that had that deck back then, you might just have a potentially strong deck going into this set. And then for Dark Irregulars, they basically reprinted the 10k and 12k attackers for Amon's followers. So the grade 1 says both players can put a card from their hand into their soul to draw 1, and he increases its power based on how many cards are in your opponent's soul. So that sounds very matchup reliant. I'm not sure how much I like that. Might be good, might be average. And then the 12k attacker, Ron Ginlin, is when placed, you soul charge, and depending on your opponent's choice, you may soul charge even more. So it sounds like the Gel Sledge that lets your opponent choose if you can do a certain thing or not. And he also gets power and shield based on how many cards your opponent has in soul, which sounds okay. Again, I'm not sure how much I like that, because against decks that do soul blast a lot, that's going to be kind of like problematic. And then Amon, of course, says his super powerful skill forces cards from your opponent's hand and even their rear guards into their soul. So forcing your opponent to put cards from hand into soul is pretty yes. And he gets a major power boost depending on how many cards are in your both players' souls. So this put cards from hand into soul ability might actually be pretty strong. I'm not sure how I feel about everything relying on your opponent's soul as well, though. That might be a little bit tricky. We have Genesis and Tachikaze, an interesting combination. And for Genesis, we actually got Yadagarasa coming back. Makes me realize how much it looks like the Kujo Sara from Genshin all of a sudden. I guess it kind of makes sense with all the crow aesthetics. But Cider also coming back, and she looks super cute this time. Like, this might be my favorite art of these three. So Cider can return to hand by soul charging after it boosted, and when placed as a guardian, the more cards you have in your soul, the stronger the shield. Again, we always like that. We always like that. Yatagara says when she attacks, she has a skill that activates on the number of grades you soul blast. And she has a skill that increases the shield of your guardians, which is cool. Me as a Dieliner main, I'll always like that. And Himiko Reverse says activate trigger effects by placing triggers from soul as a locked card at the end of the turn by writing an Oracle Queen Himiko during your opponent's turn. So it sounds like she might do something to your opponent's triggers if it's like Himiko related, because that allowed you to apply multiple trigger effects, right? So maybe she nullifies your opponent's triggers or has like a brand-like effect that like turns the opposite of the triggers too. I would find that pretty cool, so I hope they explore something interesting with Himiko here as well. For Tachis, I'm not too interested. Basically, it's the right chain for Raptors, so when you ride the grade 1, it searches the grade 2 or higher and sets up armed gauges, and then when you ride over the grade 2, you can call multiple grade 2 or lower Raptors, and when it's retired, if it had a equip gauge on it, you can call it back. And then the grade 3 basically eats allies to get stronger, and if the more allies you eat, the more powerful skills will activate. So it's the usual kind of like very obscure sort of wording that I'm not too sold on. But the grade 2 sounds pretty good and the grade 1's a searcher, so that should be good regardless of what the grade 3 does. You can literally see the sunlight behind me like poking. The sun's literally like poking in every few seconds, and I keep having to adjust my lighting to like compensate for it. So please just like settle on one mode and just like stick with it, please. Then this was the day that I think a lot of people were most excited for, because this was the reveal of Megacolony as well as Revengers, which of course most people care about. See? Look at this. Look at this. The sun just pokes out and just like ruins everything. Then for our Megacolony, we got Brilliant Blister, Armor Beetle, and Master Beetle. These don't sound as strong as Girappa was in the last set. So Master Beetle basically like paralyzes your opponent's rear guards and steals their power. And then he increases his drive count depending on the number of either player's rest units. So it sounds like it's going to count up to like 10 or something, because it's going to include both players and you probably want to attack with him last. For Shadow, they actually brought back, of course, with Dragon, you know, Raging Fall Dragon Reverse, they also brought back Rakia and Rukia, which were like the grade 1 and 2s that like gained power depending on like how much you would call stuff during your turn. The grade 1 says when you ride over it with a Revenger, you search for a Revenger and call it from your deck. And it also, like, as a rearguard, calls stuff as well, apparently. Rukia says when you ride over it with a Revenger, you can search deck for a Revenger and add it to your hand. And if you have grade 1 Revengers on your field, it gets a power-up, and it's a great combo piece with Rukia, apparently. And then Raging Fall, of course, is bound to be strong because of how Raging Form works in V. So he says you can perform multiple attacks while powering up by locking your rearguards. Ride it through the skill of Revenger Raging Form Dragon and sink your opponent into the abyss with a continuous chain of attacks. Edgy as can be, but sounds pretty good. Like, they sound like they search a lot, they call a lot, and you can have like easy time of filling up your board, which of course for Avengers is very important to have the cost for the Raging Form to do the multiple restand and stuff like that. So I like it. I like it. It sounds good, sounds edgy, sounds like what you would expect. Then for Narukami, they revealed Dungaree of all things, so a lot of people were like celebrating, and a lot of people on Japanese Twitter were like memeing about it, you know, like, oh, the old legend is finally back. So they basically printed Exorcist Mages, which were like the support cards for Dungri back then. So the grade 1 lets you add cards to your bind zone while manipulating the top cards of your deck when you ride over it. She also lets you like draw a card by binding a card from your hand, so it sounds like kind of like hand cycle. And then the grade 2 is when you ride over it, you can increase the amount of cards in your hand and bind zone, and you can bind cards directly from your deck and then strike themselves based on their grade. So that almost sounds like Mystery Flare to me for a second. And of course, Dungri is a godly dragon with unknown powers. But that power has been sealed. Use the cards in your bind zone as food and unleash his sealed power. So it sounds like he might have like what's it called again? Restraint? Is that the keyword? Restraint is what it was called, I think. So restraint that basically doesn't let him maybe like attack or something or use certain skills unless you like eat things in the bind zone. So I'm looking forward to seeing how this will work. And for Angel Feather, we got more Celestials this time around. So we get Ramiel last time, now we have Ramiel Reverse, who looks extra fine. So she says, just like Ramiel, she shows her true value when there are more cards in your damage zone that share names with your rearguard. She can force your opponent to make a tough decision when she attacks. So it sounds like she might force your opponent to like retire their stuff or discard stuff, which is pretty cool. Maybe like a Daihozan style effect. Grade 1 is Narelle, who sets up the Celestial cards in your damage zone, and she supports the Celestial gimmick. So basically like having same name damage as rearguards. And then Danielle says she has a skill when placed to call a unit from your deck with the same name as a card in your damage zone. So that's nice, like you can target probably something in the damage zone, then copy that and call it to rear, which is pretty cool. Like if you have like a Yafkiel or something in the damage, then pop that out, use its skill. So Celestials should be pretty strong going into V format. I think they're already pretty decent even now, but of course not like Gavri levels of good. But with this, I feel like they might just be pretty decent. And then the last two pairs, of course, this one shook a lot of people because we had Lukier Reverse together with Magatsu Storm Reverse, who looks extra sick. So of course for Lukier, they brought Anna and Marichka back as well. Anna says when called by her Silverthorn Vanguard, she can countercharge and refund the cost of Lukier. And Marichka says a unit that can soul charge and draw at the same time, and when placed from your soul, call more allies. So I think for the zero players, this might be a little bit of PTSD, but you know, they are definitely very iconic units. And Lukier Reverse says the more locked rearguards you have, the crazier the performance of the Silverthorn will become, which sounds interesting. Keep in mind this is an Axel clan, so you don't care about locking your own stuff as much because you always have front rows with the Axel markers. And she says also, if this card is in Lukier's soul, so it sounds like she might be able to like superior ride over Lukier during the main phase maybe. So perhaps you can like use Lukier's skill to like fill up your board, and then you can like ride her over and then get another Axel marker and then do some other stuff on top of that. So that would be pretty sick. Like I really enjoyed the Silverthorn deck in V. I still have it on me, you know, and I still play it every now and again. So I really hope that they actually give it some good support because I would love to play it again. Like it's just been Nightmare Dolls and Harry released recently in V Premium Pale Moon, and now like I guess bunnies are coming out too. So I hope that this gives Silverthorns the support that they've been needing. And then for Magatsu, for Nubatama, not Murakumo again, the Magatsu Storm Reverse says, when placed due to the skill of Magatsu Storm, the original one, he can demonstrate his true power of a distorted other self. And in the right conditions, he can become stronger than the real body, even as a rearguard. So I wonder what those conditions will be. And then the grade 1 and 2 basically search for Magatsus that search for grade 3s and stuff like that, and also bounce your rearguards and whatnot. So the usual Nubatama stuff you would expect. And finally, the last couple of decks, which I'm both very excited for, was of course Jewel Knights with Salome at the lead and Ethics Buster Reverse. So for Jewel Knights, I want to spend a little bit of time talking about this since also the last one. You have Eunice, which is a new grade 1, and she looks pretty good. She can return to hand while gathering soul. I wonder what the soul's going to be useful for. I mean, for Ashley, that's already pretty good. And when called or ridden over, just like all the other Jewel Knights, she can retire an opponent's rearguard, which doesn't sound that useful, like not as useful as like a power-up or an extra crit that we had in the past waves, so sounds okay. Then Sybil comes back, the old grade 1 searcher. She can fix your hand while increasing soul. What does fix your hand mean? Will it ungrade stuck me? Will it find me specific pieces? Like, what's that all about? When ridden or called over, it calls more Jewel Knights. Now that is good. That is very good. If I can like use Ashley's skill to call over a Sybil to then call like another Ashley or something, that's pretty cool. And then Salome says, call Jewel Knights and launch a barrage of attacks. Amidst the myriad of allies stand up here and now. When ridden over, she will increase power and drive. Now I wonder if this is going to be like a when ridden over effect, or will it be a when placed over Vanguard circle effect? Because if it is, then that means strides interact with her, and if she can increase the power and drive of various strides, then that is very cool. So I really like it. Like Sybil sounds really good, Eunice might be good too, but just having more Jewel Knights is in general very nice. Like we can play pure Jewel Knights in V, which is nice, and also in Premium again. And Salome, just thank you. Very good. Very happy, very pleased. So I'm pretty happy with the Jewel Knight wave, and I hope that it is good. I really hope it's good and it can stand its own ground. Right now, I'm in like V Premium Royals, I play MLB Jewel Knights, and I really wish to like just play Jewel Knights, to be honest. And then finally, of course, for Nova Grappler, we have Ethics Buster Reverse. He says he powers up every time he attacks, and the strong does not need the attack of other allies. Strike them down with only your fist. Furthermore, if there's Ethics Buster, the original one, in Soul, so this sounds like it might be a Ruling Nightmare because, of course, Ethics Buster has a skill when you ride over him, and if this has a skill in the ride phase as well when you place it, that might be a Ruling Nightmare. Then we also got Brainy Papio, the monkey moment. When he's discarded, he can call itself, which is cool, assuming Ethics Buster Reverse will discard for the cost. And when your Vanguard stack hits, a strong skill will activate, which sounds like he might just restand, to be honest. And then Max Beat, one of the great ones from back then as well, who is also Beast DD, says when called, he adds a Beast DD from the top of your deck to your hand, which is pretty good. You can really build a deck of just Beast DDs nowadays, I think, combined with Clan Selection and this Clan Collection. So it sounds like this deck might also be pretty decent. And that's it. Those are all 24 bits of support for all 24 clans. So what do you think? What are you most excited about from this Clan Collection? Which decks are you most looking forward to? I think for me, the things that mainly stand out are things like Salome, Lukia Reverse, Ethics Buster Reverse looks really cool too. Also kind of interested in Dungaree, like them bringing back Dungaree all of a sudden sounds like very particular, so I feel like that might be pretty interesting. Let me know what you guys think, and you know, which cards are you most excited about, which like returning units are you most excited about. It's still going to be a while before this set even releases in Japan, so we're not going to get the actual skills for just a little bit, but at least it's nice to know what we're actually getting in this set. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me today. If you liked the video, please do give it a like, and if you like the content, please do subscribe. I also have a second channel where I do content for other card games and video games that I play. I also stream on Twitch, so do check that out as well. But anyway, that's gonna be it for me. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.